Well, the 2018 legislative session has come to a close, and what a year it's been. A lot of historical victories, and I'm so glad to share those with you. Nate Gross, Policy Director at NFA, joins me, and we've had some wins regarding family, freedom, and life. Nate, what a year it's been.
It has been an incredibly busy and exciting year, but also very successful. There was a lot of victories in our key policy areas that we think are really important for the state of Nebraska, and thanks to everyone's support, their prayers, I think we were able to make a big difference this year.
It's an intensive process, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's a process. It's very challenging to pass a bill. There's a lot of stages, a lot of conflict, things changing on a dime. And so that's why we do what we do. With our daily presence at the state capitol, we're able to really build those relationships with senators and staff. So we're able to continually work with them through that process and see a bill all the way through completion, from the first draft to amendments and final reading.
Well, let's talk about some of the 2018 wins. Sanctity of life, the dignity of life is so core to what we fight for. What were some of the wins this year?
Yeah, this was a really exciting year for life. This is the issue that so many people are passionate about, and we had a major pro-life victory. People were talking about it all year, the major debate on the Title X provision in the state budget, and we can now say that Nebraska's tax dollars will not go to fund abortion providers, and that is a huge victory that we haven't been able to accomplish before.
I consider it one of the most significant things that took place this year. It was hard to accomplish, but every Nebraskan needs to celebrate that no taxpayer dollars, none of their hard-working dollars, are now going to support the abortion industry.
People were so excited about this, and really it was kind of the major debate of the whole year, and for the entire legislature, and we were at the center of it, and very grateful that we were able to come out on the winning side of that issue. This wasn't the only pro-life issue that we worked on this year. We also had a bill with Senator Albright, LB 1040, that is a really special and unique bill that creates a state-issued commemorative birth certificate for miscarriages, and that bill also passed. And so Nebraska is actually now the first state in the entire country to provide a state-issued certificate that recognizes and honors the life of an unborn child at any gestational point, which is, I think, a really impactful policy that'll make a big difference for families.
And I think about the hearing, what we call the courageous warrior mamas that told their stories about losing children to miscarriage. One mom had lost 9 children. And to that mother, whether that child is 4 weeks in utero or 20 weeks in utero, it doesn't matter. To her, it's a precious little child.
Exactly, and that's what's so beautiful about that bill is it recognizes the dignity of every human life. And I think one of the most powerful things I've ever seen on the floor of the legislature was this year on that bill. A couple of senators were kind of being critical of it and taking shots right after the Title X debate. And then a number of female senators just all started sharing their personal experiences with miscarriage and just the importance of that bill and what it would do for families. And I think people were really moved by that.
To me that evening, because it was during the night that it got debated, and so there's kind of a dusk lighting in the Capitol, but I'll never forget it, because as state senators shared their personal stories, some of them 30 years later, they still remember the day. They still remember the day that they lost their precious one to miscarriage.
Yeah, it's an incredibly impactful issue, and I think it's easy to forget sometimes that senators are people too, and these issues are also personal to them, and they have life experiences. And so I think this bill is really honoring to a lot of families and really furthers the culture of life.
The other thing in the life issue, because we consider it a dignity of life issue, is our anti-trafficking efforts. And there were some major wins again this year.
Yeah, it was another great year on the anti-trafficking front. We were able to help pass a bill to help victims of trafficking to have criminal convictions expunged and set aside from their records if it came while they were a trafficking victim. And this is a really important step to helping survivors of trafficking, find employment and sort of regain control of their life by not having criminal convictions following them, once they get pulled out, especially when those convictions were a direct result of them being trafficked. And, it's not right that would be on their record.
It's been a good year on the sanctity of life for NFA. And once again, we just are so appreciative to our ministry partners because they allow us the opportunity to be their voice down at the Capitol. In the issue of family, too, there's been some wins, not only in bills that have passed, but bills that were unsuccessful. Let's talk about gambling.
Yeah, there's always a number of bills to expand gambling and legalize casinos. We see them every year, and we're very grateful that once again those bills have failed to advance. We had a attempt to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot that would legalize casinos, and that failed. And there were other measures to expand Keno and the state lottery. They're very dangerous policies that failed to advance as well. And so I think we're very grateful that we have a legislature that is committed to protecting families and family values and making sure we're not exploiting or profiting off of people's addictions.
Another interesting development was a bill that was attached to their major bill that went forward to correct a loophole regarding bottle clubs. Now, most Nebraskans go, what's a bottle club?
Yeah, this issue on the bottle clubs was by far the most challenging issue I think we worked on all year. Bottle club is just like a bar or nightclub, except people bring their own alcohol instead of selling it. And so that means that right now there's a loophole where those clubs aren't regulated or under the control of the Liquor Commission. And so they're able to do things that nobody else can. Minors are allowed entrance. They stay open later. And very alarmingly, they also have fully nude entertainment, and the patrons are actually allowed to touch the dancers. And so there became some really great concern about issues of sexual exploitation and human trafficking. And so we had a bill with Senator Thibodeau to close that loophole and require these clubs to be regulated. And it seemed like every time we thought we were going to advance the bill, something came up and blocked it. And so we had to really fight for it. But it was very symbolic that the last vote of the entire session was on an amendment that went through on final reading to close that loophole and require those bottle clubs to be licensed and regulated, which was a big, big victory.
Oftentimes around our office, we talk about public policy. It enforces and endorses a belief system. And so it's not only passing legislation, but it's also preventing legislation. On the family front, particularly I think of two bills, sort of redefining marriage, but also on sexual orientation and gender identity. What happened on two bills this year?
Yeah, those were two bills that are very dangerous for religious freedom. One that creates a protected class for sexual orientation and gender identity, and another that was trying to replace terminology in marriage ceremonies, actually, so that in order for the marriage to be valid, the party would have to take each other as spouses rather than husband and wife. And both of those bills failed. Neither of them were able to advance this session. The SOGI bill wasn't debated this year. It wasn't prioritized. And the bill on marriage terminology never made it out of committee. And so we were very encouraged and grateful that those bills, which are very emotional and difficult subjects that we face every year and will face again next year, but senators were able to stand strong on those issues and not compromise those values and really protect freedom of conscience by ensuring they didn't advance.
And I think it's really important to state that we believe that everybody should be treated with dignity and respect. This is about protecting one's right to think, one's right to hold their deeply held beliefs in the public square. That we see in Nebraska where we want to be able to live and work and raise a family and adhere to our personal faith. Nate, grassroots advocacy is so important to what we do. We can be down at the Capitol. We love being down at the Capitol, but senators still need to hear from their constituents. What was one of those moments this year, or a couple of moments this year, where grassroots advocacy made a difference?
There were a number of great examples this year. There was a bill that would change terminology in marriage ceremonies from husband and wife to spouses. And so we sent out an action alert asking for pastors and churches to stand with us on that issue. And when we went into that committee hearing, we were able to turn in to the Judiciary Committee a statement that was signed by more than 75 pastors from all across Nebraska saying they opposed that law. And you could just see the impact that made. That was a bill that people, I think, were expecting to just come right out of that committee. But when state senators get, signatures of more than 75 pastors representing tens of thousands of Nebraskans, they really have to think twice. And I think that's what made the difference and kept that bill in committee.
And when they unite and represent multiple denominations, it's the power of when the body of Christ unites to stand for justice and to stand for truth. Public policy impacts our day-to-day life.
It really does. And we know that all it takes for bad policy that's harmful to families and life, religious freedom, all it takes for those bills to pass is for good people just to remain silent. And so when, our alliance, that's what we're about, equipping people to be informed on the issues and to make a difference. And this year, we're very thankful that we were able to do that with the support of thousands of Nebraskans from across the state standing with us for family, for freedom, and for life.
Well, Nate, we've talked a lot about public policy, and policy is one of our three prongs. The other two are prayer and people. I want to talk about prayer. That's very important to us. And I believe this year we've seen some miracles, and solely because God's people have arisen and prayed. One of the things that we love doing is hosting a prayer walk at the Capitol the third Saturday of every month. We quietly walk through the halls and pray and ask for God's wisdom to senators. We pray for our leaders, but also ask for miracles, and we've had some miracles this year.
Prayer is really at the foundation of everything we do here, and we've referred to the Bottle Club issue a lot this year as sort of the Bottle Club miracle. That bill was dead so many times and really shouldn't have passed this year. And yet we found a way by God's grace. And there's been a lot of dedicated people who have been praying into that issue and for this bill to be successful for over a year. And it's because of that faithfulness and in those prayers that that really helps sustain us and keeps us going. And we know that there have been miracles in the work we do here, and it's because of those prayers.
And then the Capital Prayer Initiative. That has been, I think, a great asset to what we're doing. We text urgent prayer alerts, and people, right as it's happening, they're getting that prayer alert. The Bottle Bill Club is up in 30 minutes. Be praying. It makes a difference.
I love that we have people who are signed up on the Capital Prayer Initiative. It's so powerful to know that people are praying specifically for what needs prayer at that moment. And it's so critical that we have people who are doing that, and it's helped make a big difference.
What comes to mind in the power of prayer is on Select File, on 1040, on this birth certificates. First round was tough, and we invited people to pray, and there was a tangible presence of the Lord that night in the Capitol. So much so that even Senator Albright mentioned it. She could feel God's people praying.
Senators really covet people's prayers. They tell us that regularly, that they want people's prayers, and they're under so much stress and pressure, and for them to know that people are lifting them up in prayer really supports and encourages them too.
And we have a prayer event coming up that's going to take place right inside the Capitol Warner Chambers on May 3rd. We'll have Lieutenant Governor Foley and Senator Watermeyer, and the purpose is really just to gather and pray for our leaders right inside the state capitol. The
National Day of Prayer is really such an incredible event every year. It's so inspiring to see hundreds of like-minded believers gathering together to unite in prayer for our country and for our state. And we hope to see another great turnout this year.
So we have our three prongs: policy, prayer, and people. And people, it's empowering people to make a difference and informing them on the key issues. And I'm really excited. The session is over, but that doesn't mean our work discontinues. We are preparing for elections, and we have launched the Nebraska Voter Guide. Why is that important? Why do elections matter?
It really can't be overstated how important elections are. When we're talking about these policy victories, when we have this year, a lot of those victories were by a very small margin, or because we had champions on these issues. And without them, without good people making policy, we won't get those victories. And we'll also see bad legislation being championed instead. And at the local level especially, these state and local races are really decided by just a couple votes. And so people's vote absolutely matters. It makes a huge difference in these races. And so we're encouraging everyone to be informed. The state legislature is nonpartisan, so there's not an R or a D next to people's names. So it's especially important that people know where the candidates stand on these issues that people care about. And people can find all of that information at our voter guide at nebraskavoterguide.com.
And every vote does count. I'm thinking of an election 2 years ago. A district was decided by less than 100 votes. So we really encourage people to get out and vote and to check out nebraskavoterguide.com. Nate, it's been good visiting today and just to think through what's happened in this legislative session and wrapping it up. Now our work begins to preparing for 2019. Our team will assemble. We'll start looking at legislation, trying to find senator sponsors. We are so honored to get to serve Nebraska families. Because of our ministry partners, we get to be a voice down at the Capitol.
It really has been a successful year by a lot of accounts, and really it's not possible without our ministry partners, everyone's their prayers, their advocacy, all the emails and phone calls to senators, and their financial support enables us to do this work and stand for family values and make sure that life is protected and religious freedom flourishes in our state. And so it is an honor to get to serve in this role, and we're looking forward to doing it again next year.
Absolutely. We have a dream to see a Nebraska where God is honored, religious liberty is protected, families and marriages thrive, and life is cherished. That's a great state to live in.